Now from the invertebrates, or to be very specific, the non-chordates, we are moving further to the vertebrates. Now what are vertebrates? When I am saying vertebrates, I am referring to those organisms which are having one new term that is getting introduced over here, that is the vertebral column. Alright, now what is vertebral column? In easier terms, you can just say that the organisms which have a skeleton basically. Now, due to the presence of this vertebral column inside the body of an organism, there is a skeleton which is present, and such is the different arrangement of muscles for different types of locomotions that you see lot of organisms showing varied movements, and that is all because of the vertebral column, which, try to recall, has been derived from the term that we have studied earlier, that is the notochord. Now this notochord, as I had told you in the beginning, that this notochord is the point of attachment of different muscles. Now when this would be replaced by the vertebral column, now this vertebral column would also act as the site for attachment of various muscles, which gives rise, pay attention, which gives rise to various muscular arrangements and patterns that is responsible for bringing about various types of locomotory patterns. Alright, now I am going to repeat it again, that because we are studying chordates, we have the presence of notochord inside the organisms. This notochord serves as the site of attachment for various muscles, and when these muscles, they have various attachments, this notochord gets replaced by the vertebral column in the later stages of the organism, and when this gets replaced by the vertebral column, we have the skeleton, which has the muscular arrangement in such a way that the organism shows varied pattern of movements. Now as you can see over here, you can see the variety that we are going to find inside vertebrates when we study them. You can see over there a python is there. It's not a python, it's a snake, it's a crate basically. Then we see the sharks, birds are there, fishes are there, amphibians could be seen. You can see the skeleton of a snake. If ever you have happened to see the snake's skeleton, you would see that there is a central line and the bones are, there is a central line sort of thing, and the bones are transversing out of it like this. Alright, now this central part is the vertebral column, though this does not look like a snake in any ways, but you can just draw parallel from the site. You must have seen, you all must have seen the snake skin in some stage of your life, and not the vertebral column, but over here in this picture, if you can make it out. Otherwise also, if any organism you see a central part that acts as the backbone of the organism, and from there comes out the other bones, and that is what the skeletal composition of an organism is like, and that is why they are known as vertebrates, due to the presence of vertebral column. Now when we are talking about vertebrates, we have to keep in mind a few points what these vertebrates are going to possess. Of course, they are going to have notochord in some stage of their life, which would be replaced by the vertebral column. Then there is a condition that because they are chordates, they are going to have, we have talked about the characteristic features of the chordates if you remember, they are going to have a dorsal nerve cord. Okay. Then you are going to find pharyngeal gill slits. So you are going to find gill slits as well. And apart from these three things that we have talked about, first one was this, then we have dorsal nerve cord, then we have pharyngeal gill slits, and apart from that, we are going to find the triploblastic nature, the coelomic fluid would be present, coelomic cavity would be there, the organisms would be segmented, and there would be lot many muscular arrangements. Now we have talked in great lengths probably about this. We are going to move to the first class that we have in the case of vertebrates. Now what you see over here is a fish. The first class that we study in vertebrates is going to be a fish only. As you can see over here, many types of fishes are there, and in fishes also you are going to find that there are many types yet again. So we are talking over here about class PISCES. You must have read about this word ever, if you're interested in zodiac signs, there is a particular zodiac for Pisces. Now, what you see in this particular picture is that you must have drawn fishes in your earlier classes, the younger representation of the fish. This is the simplest fish. As you can see, let's see the external characteristics. The body looks like streamlined. Now, what is the purpose of streamlined body? It is for giving its movement in the water. Now, every fish has to survive in water. You might have done the nursery rhyme. There is a popular nursery rhyme in which we discuss that if we take out the fish from the water, it is not going to survive. Now, that means the class that we are studying is going to be exclusively aquatic. You are not going to find any organism in the terrestrial habitat. So, the class Pisces is not at all terrestrial. All the organisms which belong to this class are aquatic. Okay. Now, the next thing is that their body is streamlined. In certain cases, you are going to find scales on the body. Now, if you remember your childhood representation of a fish, mine was such, I don't know about yours, but mine was such. We used to make a fish like this, which showed that it is having a streamlined body. There was an eye over here, and what the best artistic student used to make this way. Now, this represents the scales present on the body. This is why I have drawn this picture, though it's a little bit cartoonish and kiddish. But over here, you must have drawn these pictures so you can make it out that a fish body is going to have scales over it. Alright, so this fish body has scales, it is streamlined, it is having a terminal opening, and if you can recall, we just saw a picture of shark where the mouth is not terminal. There is a snout which is present. So, the mouth is not terminal. In other case, the opening could not be terminal, but in most of the cases it is terminal mouth. Then we have the other sense organs which are present. What you have to remember is that there is presence of gills. We had talked about pharyngeal gill slits. There is presence of gills, and there is presence of fins as well, for giving it the motion that is required in the water. As you must have seen in the case of divers, they have flippers in their feet. That is identical to the fins of a fish, so that it is easy for them to wade in water, okay, wading purpose. And these fins are for wading. The streamlined body is also for swimming purpose, and they are often provided with air bladders so that they can keep floating in the water. Now, another thing you have to remember, that they have gills, that we have discussed. Apart from gills, what you have to remember is that there are fins which are present, and they have a two-chambered heart. Now, as we move further in the vertebrates, pay attention to how many chambers the heart is going to have. This is having two-chambered heart, one auricle and one ventricle. There is mixing of the blood that contains oxygen and that does not contain oxygen. You will know about it in greater depths when you move on to your higher classes, that what is this deoxygenated blood, how it gets mixed and how it is not mixed in the further classes. For now, you have to remember that in class Pisces, the heart would be two-chambered. The gills would take up the water inside them. Whatever water is whatever oxygen is present in the water as dissolved oxygen, that would be taken up. It would go to the heart, which is two-chambered, and then the water would be thrown out of the body. Now, this is what the class Pisces characteristics are comprising of. Now, moving to the types of fishes. One is the cartilaginous fishes, as we had talked in a lot about their characteristics, similar external characteristics, because we are very much concerned about the skeleton. We had talked in great length about the skeleton, vertebral column, the attachment of the muscles. There is one point of difference between types of fishes, and that is quite characteristic difference. And what is that difference? That the fishes could have a skeleton totally made up of cartilage, or they could have a skeleton made up of bones. On the basis of what type of skeleton a fish possesses, we have cartilaginous fishes and we have bony fishes. Now, this you have to remember by heart, that these sharks and rays, not the rays of sun, stingray type of fishes, cartilaginous, and the second one is bony fish. Now, in the case of cartilaginous fishes, the skeleton would be made up of cartilage. Touch your nose. This part is not a bone, this is cartilage. So, you can imagine what the skeleton of shark would be made up of. It would be made up of this pliable material, this part, these are cartilages, and at the end of the bones also we have cartilages. So, we have cartilaginous fishes which have the skeleton entirely made up of the cartilage, and we have example of rays and sharks in this case. And in the case of bony fishes, this is the example of bony fishes. You can find the scales present. There is a terminal mouth opening. Those of you consume fishes, they must be having water in their mouth because this is an edible fish. This is a fish that is consumed. There are many sorts of fishes which are part of our dietary routines, and this fish is one such example. This is a bony fish. The skeleton that you would find inside this fish, now supposedly this is not the fish, you must have seen the skeleton also represented. In many cases you see the skeleton of fish as well, that is represented like this, something like this, and then there are bones like this. This is what the skeleton of a fish looks like, if you have ever paid attention to the drawings and other representations where we find skeletons. So, we have a skeleton of a fish, and this particular skeleton would be made up of bones. So, we have to keep these things in mind, that the first class of vertebrates is PISCES. It has fishes, and the fishes could be of two types based on the skeleton that is present inside them. It could be cartilaginous, it could be bony. They have a streamlined body. There are scales which are present on their body. They have gills for the exchange of gases, where the water is taken up, the dissolved oxygen is then taken up, and then the water is given out, and they have a two-chambered heart. So, these are the points you have to keep in your mind when you study class PISCES.